Hi, I'm Liz. Welcome to the Just One In podcast. This is episode 3. So I am coming to you from Cochranville, Pennsylvania, which is southeastern Pennsylvania between Philadelphia and Lancaster, so near Amish country. Today's Sunday, June 25th, 2017. Trying to remember all the administrative stuff because I'm terrible at doing this. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Algebrina. And I'll be sure to put that in the notes so that you know how to spell that. I am a mom of 2. I live here with my husband, Greg, my children, Eric and Tilda, and our dog, Millie, who's a boxer. So, okay, sorry. The first part is always so awkward in figuring out what it is you're going to say. So I did not podcast last week. I had planned to, but I got completely distracted by another project. And I did actually put a video up there for that one. So if you wanted to check that out, you can do that. So to give you a little bit of background for this, my family, and when I say my family, I mean myself and my small family and my siblings and their spouses and children and my parents. We all live pretty close to each other. They all live about 20 minutes away from each other tops. We're a little bit further out, but we're still under an hour. We get together all the time. Sunday dinner is pretty regular, at least with all of them. We try to get down a couple times a month. So one of the things that we like to do as a regular gathering is a YouTube night. It's something my brother-in-law started. We all pick some videos, 2 or 3, about 10 minutes worth of content each person. And we put together a playlist of those videos, and then we get together and we watch them all together and just make a night of it. So it's very similar to if you're hanging out with your friends and you're like, oh, have you seen this YouTube video? And you pull it up and you watch that, and then you click through, oh, you should see this one, and you just spend all night watching YouTube videos. This is like an organized version of that. So we do it once or twice a year, and we're having one tonight. And Rob decided that Rob, my brother-in-law, decided that we should do talent show videos as part of the contributions this time. So for my talent, I was like, obviously I have to do something knitting related. So I picked a 1-day project that I could do record in a couple of sittings, and then smash it all together and speed it up and make a video out of it. So that's what I did. Like I said, it's on my channel, so you can check it out. But I have the finished object here, and I did block it, so it's actually finished. This is my double knit hot pad. So it's a tea kettle. You can see it's light on dark, dark on light. This was my first time doing double knitting. I was trying that out. There's a couple mistakes. I need to get used to how to read a chart and do the double knit stitches with a chart. But I'm really happy with it. I was excited to try out something with double knitting. I've been hearing about it for a while, and there's some really cool projects. So it's actually pretty easy. So so that was exciting to figure out. And now I've got a couple of projects in my list to do bigger projects with double knitting. Greg says that he wants a scarf. So I'm working on gathering the yarn for that. So I have a finished object this week. I think that's the first one since the podcast started. Like, I started with a couple of finished objects as I was showing you, what I've done in the past. But that's my first. I've started it since the podcast started and finished it off. So finished object for this week. I've got a couple of small things that I want to get out and then focus on the main content, which is actually going to be stash. I haven't talked about my stash much, and I've taken a couple of trips and big events to add to it. So we're going to focus on that. But let me show you my other finished object, which, oh, there they are. I put everything together and put it nicely somewhere and then forgot what I did. So last week I showed you, I have to figure out which one it was. Oh, it doesn't really matter. I showed you one of these socks. Sorry, I'm gonna have to figure out the lighting too. I showed you one of these socks. This is from a sock blank that I got at Maryland Sheep and Wool from Gail's Art. I finished the other sock. So I have a finished pair of socks and they actually fit me. I am so excited. Like I mentioned last time, I did an asymmetric toe. So I have a left sock and a right sock. They are dedicated to those feet. And yeah, and they're great. It's a little bit warm to be wearing wool socks right now, so I haven't worn them too much yet, but I definitely will. And I actually block them too, so they're a nice shape. They've actually got the shape of the sock blocker. So since I finished that pair of socks, I realized I did not have any more mindless knitting. I tried to think of a project to bring with me somewhere. And it was all too complicated or too many pieces. So I was like, I have to have a sock on the needles at all times now. So I've learned that. And I did cast on another sock. Now, if you remember my first episode, I was wearing a hat that I'd knit out of hedgehog fibers, Salty Tails. That's this. Oh, goodness. The lighting may be tricky here. I'm trying out a new recording setup. You may notice I'm at a different angle. You may not notice. I've switched walls in my office. I wear glasses. It's a fact of life. If I didn't wear them, I wouldn't be able to see. I don't wear contacts anymore. When you work from home, there's very little effort that you're willing to put in for things like contacts. And so window glare is just kind of, it just comes with the territory. I'm trying to minimize it as much as I can. I can tell it's in this one. That's actually from my door now, and the window's on that side. But I moved so that the big bay window is to my right now. We may have to play with that more. We'll see. You may also remember my first episode, the quality wasn't as good. I was using a camcorder then. Last episode, I switched to using my phone, which is what I'm using now. And then this episode, I'm same setup, but I added a targeted microphone. So I'm hoping that improves the sound. Last episode, there was a bit of just general buzzing in the background. So total tangent, but you may see a couple of small changes as I'm trying to figure out what I ultimately want to have as my setup. So anyway, so this is Salty Tails. I'm hoping that it will focus. It may not, because I also noticed last time my camera was auto-focusing and it was going in and out, which was driving me crazy. So I may try to minimize that as much as possible. So Salty Tails, I had enough left over that I'm pretty sure I can get a pair of socks out of it. I hope I can, because I've already started them, and if I run out, I'm going to be fairly sad. But I started another Rose City roller. I'm doing magic loop this time. You can see I've got my Hiya Sharp circulars. I try to remember what they're called. I also changed it up slightly. Instead of the slip stitch heel, I'm doing an Eye of Partridge heel, which is very similar. It's just that when you're doing the slip stitches, you alternate which stitch it is that you're slipping. I messed up on one of the rows, which is kind of driving me crazy, but I decided at the time I didn't want to rip it back, so I'm just going to have to deal with it. But so this is my new pair of socks that I've got going. The last ones I did on double pointed needles. This time, like I said, I'm trying out magic loop, and I'll see which method I like best. So that is my whip, my sock whip. So that's the first one. The second one will get cast on eventually. I may try and do a contrasting toe, because like I said, I think I have enough yarn, but if I don't, that a contrasting toe would help stretch that a bit. I didn't do a contrasting heel, so I'm not sure how funny it'll look, but we'll see when I get there. Okay, I think that's actually going to be it as far as works in progress and FOs go. I have another FO, but I can't share it. And I hate when podcasters say that because they're like, then why are you even telling me about it? But I'm really excited about this one. It is probably going to go to its recipient next week. So I'll record something about it before I gift it. And then I'll talk about it next week. But I'm really excited to get this one off my needles. It's been on for a while. It's a project I was really excited about. So, I lied. One more work in progress. So I haven't shown this on the podcast yet. I've mentioned a couple times, this is a knitting, sometimes stitching, sometimes crochet. I haven't shown you any stitching though. So, this is going to take some working to show because the frame is bigger or smaller than what I've got done on the project. This is the Clouds Factory year-long stitch-along. It's Fabulous Women in History. There is a monthly clue or pattern piece that comes out, and I signed up in like February, so I already started behind. But I've now finished through March, which means I have 3 more months to catch up on, and then of course July comes out in like 4 days, so it's going to be 4 months fairly soon. But I'm really excited. This is my first time stitching on linen, and it's tiny, so that took some getting used to. And it's also my first time stitching in a long time. I used to stitch a lot when I was in college, probably. And I just, I would hardly ever finish a project, which was probably part of my issue for not sticking with it, is I've got one that I know I started. It's cats. It's a cat on a pile of books. I think it's a fairly famous one. I know I've seen the picture in a vet's office before. But I'm probably like 80% done on that one, and I just haven't picked it up. I probably could. I'd have to find the pattern again now, and the floss, because I'm sure that the floss I originally purchased is either in terrible shape or gone by now. So that's my stitching progress. I am going to spend the rest of the episode, as I mentioned, talking about stash enhancements. So I'm going to kind of work backwards from the furthest in the past to the most recent. The big one to focus on is probably Maryland sheep and wool. I've shown you this before. This is the sock blank that I have my finished object socks out of. This was my first sock blank purchase, and I made that at Maryland sheep and wool. Now that I've finished a project with it, I love it. It was so much fun to knit off of. It's just such a cool process. It's so easy to travel. Like, you don't have to worry about it rolling away, or it's really easy to keep a handle on. So I really like sock blanks now. So thank you, Gail, for showing me a really cool sock blank that got me into this now. But I also picked up some other yarn at Maryland sheep and wool. One, and this is the only one that fell to the ground. This is, I can't even remember what it's called. Shoot. I'm gonna put it in the text. I know what it is. I'm just not thinking of it right now. This is from Flying Fibers. They put together a kit. This is their, oh goodness. It's their own yarn. They get it from England. It's part of their rare breeds that they actually raise rare breeds, but they dye it themselves. I cannot think of what it's called. But they sold it as a kit. So this is the Straiths shawl, I believe, which Renee, who's the daughter of the mother-daughter owners, she designed the shawl pattern, and they sold it as a kit with this wool. And I believe they kept this wool exclusive to the pattern kits for now, or the pattern actually exclusive to the wool, at least for the moment. I think they'll be available separately eventually. But anyway, so that's one thing that I picked up at Maryland Sheep and Wool. And then really the only other thing that I picked up, I picked up 4 skeins from various booths, because I went into Maryland Sheep and Wool knowing I wanted to get yarn for an exploration station. So I did. I got some yarn that I wanted to get. Colors, I walked around and found colors that I thought would go together, and I just kind of built the 4 colors that I think I want. Now that I'm trying to figure out which colors are going to go where, I may actually throw in a 5th color, because I've seen that people have done that in the brioche section of the Exploration Station shawl, which, if you're not familiar with it, is a Stephen West pattern. It's available on Ravelry. But we'll see. It's one that I'm itching to cast on. I'm probably going to cast it on like tonight or tomorrow, because like I said, I finished something earlier, so I think I've earned a new cast on. So this is a purple that I picked up. It's showing up a bit more maroon than it really is. It's really a dark royal purple. I picked this up at the Neighborhood Fiber Company, which I believe is based in Baltimore. I realized that it actually says it's lace weight, so I'm not sure if it'll work in my shawl, because it's supposed to be fingering weight, but I compared the widths and they seem pretty comparable, so we'll see if I run into an issue there. And then I also picked up from Tempting You Yarns this color here. It's got a sparkle base, so you've got some stellina in it. It's got the purples, which matches really well with the other purple, and actually this one's showing up much better, so it's a similar color. And then there's some like dark greeny turquoise in here, so I thought those complemented each other really well. And then this one I got, I'm unscanning accidentally. I'm trying to remember who the vendor was. Beach Painting Gal, it looks like. I picked up this one. This one, it's got the purples and it's got the turquoise and it's got some green in it. So I picked this one up thinking that kind of transitioned pretty well from this one. And then I actually went back to her booth later and picked up this lime green. Which again, it's really hard to tell if it's showing up well or not. But this one, I thought that these 4 work really well together. I'm excited to cast on. So we'll see. Like I said, I think I'm gonna cast on really soon. So hopefully I'll have some progress to share next time. If I do decide on a 5th color, I'm honestly not sure what it is. I think it will go in the brioche section, though. I'm pretty sure I'm leaning toward the green in the brioche section, and I think that would offset better with a solid color than my 2 multicolors, which are my other 2 options. This one's going to be the dark throughout the shawl, so we'll have to see. I'll get creative. We'll figure it out eventually. And I think that was all I picked up at Maryland Sheep. Actually, there was one more I picked up, but I haven't figured out what to do with this one yet. This is from the same Tempting You Yarns. It's a pink tonal in a sparkly base. The You So Sparkly sock base. And the color is Precocious. I actually did a craft swap with someone in one of my Facebook mommy groups. We've got a crafty spin-off group from that group, and she does quilts. So she said that she was looking for someone who could knit a poncho for her daughter. She got one at Target, and she says if she'd known how much she loved it, she would have bought one in every size. But she didn't know how much she'd love it. So she only has the one size, and her daughter's outgrowing it. So we did a craft swap, and she sent me a quilt, and I'm going to be knitting her up a poncho, a size or 2 larger. So I think I may actually end up using this for that, but I need more. So if I do, I'm going to have to contact the Tempting You Yarns, and I meant to do that yesterday and I forgot. So I'm going to have to reach out to them and see if I can get more to use. So anyway, actually I have the quilt here, so I'm gonna pop it up real quick and show you. My kids were playing in my office the other day, I guess. This is not gonna show up at all, but it's a big Z for Zimmerman, which, as you know, is my name. It's lovely. She did a really good job. So I'm excited to keep up my end of the bargain and get that poncho over to her. Okay, so that was it for Maryland Sheep and Wool. More recently than that, oops, sorry, dropping more things. More recently than that, working backwards. Okay, so this is actually fairly recently. I went to a knitting gathering. It was a sip and stitch, which is held in Paoli, Pennsylvania, which is about half an hour away from me. Not too bad. At a restaurant, bar kind of place. It was the Red Hound Grill, I believe. They have a monthly sip and stitch, and it just so happened that I heard about it because Jamie of Beautiful Mess Yarn Works, who I swear I will not talk about every episode, but have so far, she was having a trunk show at their sip and stitch event. So she posted about it, and that's how I heard about it, and I was like, oh, that's closer to my neck of the woods. So I decided to head over for that. I am planning to head back. Also, I didn't manage to make it this month. Just scheduling didn't work out. Hopefully next month, although it's Greg's birthday on that day, so I might not be able to make it that time either, but hopefully I'll be able to continue to go because it was a lot of fun. But while I was there, I picked up 2 skeins of yarn from her. This one was an exclusive color that she did for the night that she called Sip and Stitch. And you can see this one's a lot of fun. It's kind of tie-dye-y. It's got some bold colors in there. Yellow and green and orange and blue and pink. It's a lot of fun. There's a ton of colors in there. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. Honestly, I don't know what I'm going to do with a lot of these, but I just love having pretty yarn. I also, now that I'm knitting more socks, I think that a lot of these will turn into great socks. So the other one that I picked up is Skadoosh, which I think is one of her normal colorways, or regular colorways, I guess. And this one has highlighter green in it and pops of pink and purple and blue. It's just beautiful. Sorry, I can't tell if this is focusing. I have the camera a bit further away from me this time, or at least the view of the camera. I mentioned last time I have a mirror behind my phone so I can see it because the front camera is better quality, or the rear camera is better quality. So anyway, it's a bit of a weird setup. But so that was something that I picked up a month or so ago. Around the same time, I saw that Flying Fibers, the mother-daughter owned yarn store in Landisville, Pennsylvania, another one that I probably have talked about every episode and probably will going forward. They were my local yarn store. I'm much further away from them now, but I still go back. I love them so much, and I miss them. So, but I found out that they started carrying hedgehog fibers. And I think I probably talked about it before because I was wearing my hat the first episode and the socks that I'm currently working on from skeins that I got from them. So while I was at Flying Fibers picking up some yarn, first of all, Salty Tails. Obviously, I got that one. This one here is called Monet. It's a light blue with speckles of pink and purple and blue and this orange, rusty orange color, which is just gorgeous. She has that in Salty Tails too. I just love that orange pop for some reason. I don't know. I don't know that I would have expected to, but I love the way that it has knit up already. So that is Monet. I also picked up a Shiver, which is this one. It has a lot of the same pinks and blues and purples. It's got some gray in here too, and it's a more neutral base than the other one. The other one was a blue. There we go. And then I also picked up those two, I think, were skinny singles. And this one is twist sock. So this one is the pinky swear colorway. It's showing up pretty well on the camera. It's always hard to tell. It is bright pink. Bright pink with some purple, and really there's lots of colors in here. There's some green over here, yellows, and then several different shades of pink. It's very pretty. So those are what I picked up at Flying Fibers. And then let's see, I've got a couple more. So after that, I decided, actually, I think it was the same day. I took some time off from work, had a little mecation, did some yarn shopping. I popped over to a store in Philadelphia. I believe it was Hidden River Yarns. And I knew they carried Quince & Co., which I've never gotten my hands on, and I know a lot of podcasters have used. So I was interested in checking that out. So I picked up some Chickadee. This is the Peacock, just kind of a tealy blue. And then I also picked up some Honey, which I know is a color that Katie of Inside Number 23 and Eric of Sticks Plus Twine have talked about. I have decided that I'm going to do the, I can't remember what it's called. It's from the Heart on My Sleeve sweater collection. It's the one that Joji Locatelli designed. I think it's called Stranded Heart. I might have to correct myself on that. But it's a yoked sweater where you've got a different design in the yoke, and it's basically just like a top. It looks like a top stitch. So that's what I'm going to do with the Honey. I'm going to do that as contrasting color, and then it'll be the Peacock for the main sweater color. These are outside of my normal comfort zone with colors, so it'll be interesting. I'm hoping that I like the the end result. I was gonna go with a green. Green is my favorite color for everything. My phone case is actually green. I'm staring at it right now. There's a lot of green in my life. But there wasn't enough of the color that I wanted in stock, and I am terribly impatient. I could not wait for a special order, even though I bought these like a month and a half ago and haven't cast on. But it's also in Philadelphia. It's over an hour away, so it would have been inconvenient. So so I went with what colors are available, and I'm excited to try it out. We'll see how those go. Okay, more recently than that, like I said, we're working backwards. I joined the Andre Sue Knits Sock Blank Club. It's her first club, which I find kind of shocking because she has amazing sock blanks. And I'm sure I heard about them, more recently than she's been around. She's very popular. So I got the first installment of the sock blank. So spoiler, if you're part of that club, I'm going to show it. It's been a while. It's been a couple of weeks since I got it, so I hope everyone has already seen it. But it is called Dog Days, and it is this adorable little, oh goodness. You know what? I was thinking Boston Terrier, but I bet they're little bulldogs. I'm probably wrong, but they're just really, really cute. So there they are, and I'll show you the full sock blank. This one, oh look, he's got his little belly showy. They're super, super cute. So I have that sock blank. I haven't started knitting on it yet, but I'm very excited to. And I'm really excited to see what comes in the next month too. This is my first fiber of the month club too. I've never done a regular delivery thing, so I'm excited for that. And then, okay, the penultimate purchase. We're almost on the last one. So if you're watching Off Our Needles, which is the Grocery Girls Craftsy show, they decided to do a summer sweater knit along, meaning you knit a sweater during the summer so that when it's the winter months, you already have a sweater done. So I've decided to join that. I ordered the kit from Craftsy, which was with cloud-borne fibers. I've never used this before. I got the Highland worsted in charcoal heather. So I went pretty safe. I went with just a gray. Um, yeah, just a gray. It feels nice. It's not super soft, but it's not scratchy. So I think it'll be a nice warm sweater. So I'm looking forward to that. This one, another one that'll have to be cast on soon, especially because it's a knit along. I don't remember when it starts exactly, but soon if it hasn't already is my guess. Okay, and that brings us to yesterday. So yesterday I decided to go on a solo road trip. I saw on Instagram that Vine was having a trunk show at Do You Knit up in New Jersey, which I'd never been to before. And I decided to look it up and found out that it's like just over 2 hours away from me, which isn't that bad. I make trips like that all the time. And then I heard that Sweet Sparrow Yarns was also having a trunk show at Chelsea Yarn, which is also in New Jersey. And so I was like, well, I wonder where that one is. So I Google mapped the whole trip. There's about 45 minutes between Do You Knit and Chelsea Yarns, and they're both about 2 hours away from me. So it made a pretty nice triangle. So I decided to take a road trip. I did it by myself. I left my house a little before 8. I got to Do You Knit a little after 10. So they'd been open for like 10 minutes and it was really crowded. And the beautifully laid out table that I saw in the Instagram pictures that Kristen posted was already picked apart and just a mess. I think all of her kits, like the set of yarn together, I think there was one left. And from what I could tell from the basket, there were probably, I don't know, 8 or 10 that she started with. So in 10 minutes, those were picked over and gone. I did manage to pick up some yarn though, and I'll show you that in a second. I hung out on the front porch at Do You Knit. It was super crowded inside, so I hung out on the porch for 10 or 15 minutes just to decompress since it was a long drive. I had a long drive ahead of me. And I did a little bit of knitting. And then I hopped in the car, headed over to Chelsea Yarns. Got to shop there, got to meet Julie, and then hopped back in the car and headed home. Now, I was supposed to be home in 2 hours. I stopped for some barbecue because I was at a red light and I was hungry, and there was a barbecue place literally right there. And so I turned and pulled in, so I grabbed some barbecue. And then as I was leaving, my GPS said, I'd be home by 2:45. So I was driving, and then I looked down at my GPS eventually, and all of a sudden it said 3. It said I'd arrive at 3. I was like, well, that's weird. I haven't been running into a ton of traffic, so whatever. I keep driving, and then I look down a little later, and now it says 3:20. I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I've been driving for like 45 minutes and it still says I'm over 2 hours away. So I am pretty sure that I just managed to ignore my GPS for like half an hour and missed any directions it gave me. I basically drove almost to the Jersey Shore, which is not where I live or the direction I live in. So that it took a bit longer than it was supposed to. I don't know if I want to admit this, but the reason is probably because I was talking to myself in the car. It's a long drive. When I do a podcast episode, I like to talk through it a couple of times. I like to see, where my natural tangents are, if I would actually want to follow those when I'm recording, if it makes more sense to fit them in somewhere else. So I talk through it a lot as I'm leading up to a podcast episode. And so I was just chatting away to myself, and yeah, I think I just missed a major highway turn and just kept continuing on down the one I was on instead of the one I was supposed to be on. So not my best moment, but anyway, but it was still a lot of fun. I got home an hour later than I meant to, but I did pick up some good yarn, so that was fun. So at the unit, I picked up, first of all, I picked up some carbons, whatever people call them. I've never used these before. These are the size, I picked up the size that I knit socks in. So I figure, you know, this sock I'm doing magic loop, next sock, maybe I'll go back to DPNs and try out these. So I picked those up. I also picked up, The Unit is known for carrying hedgehog fibers. Like I said, Flying Fibers does too, but I think they only have a couple of bases. So what I picked up is some sock minis. I love minis so much. Like I'm putting them into my Cozy Memories blanket. I haven't done a ton of work on it actually, so I need to put more in. This is my mini bowl. I don't know if you can see it. And so this is just getting more and more full all the time because I'm constantly buying minis. Eventually I'm going to use them though. This one is called Bounce. It's like a highlighter yellow with some black and black speckles and some green and blue streaks in there. This one is Heyday on a natural base. A lot of colors in there, mostly greens and pinks and yellows. Oh, there's some orange up here. Look at that. Oh, love it. Sorry. Like I said, I don't know if these are going to focus, but it's awesome. I also picked up Typewriter, which I'm really excited about. There were a couple of mini skeins in there, and one of them was really white, so I actually ended up putting that one back and went for this one instead. This one's got a lot of black speckle in it. But I've heard about this colorway from a lot of different people, so I was excited to be able to pick some up. And then I also got Hunter, which is really just a beautiful emerald green. It's really dark and not picking up very well, but it's gorgeous. I love this. Like I said, I'm a green girl. I like green. So I picked up some minis for my mini collection. Gonna throw those in my bowl now. And then since it was a Wool and Vine trunk show, I picked up 3 skeins. I picked up 2 skeins of, oh goodness, Neptunia, I believe this one's called. I got the blitzed base, so it's gold Stellina sparkle base. This one is mostly green. It's got some blue and some purple in it, some neutral. I got 2 skeins of this, so I'm going to do something with it. I think it will probably end up in a shawl. I've been doing more shawl knitting, and I think this one is just begging to be a shawl. So I got that, and then I also got Dirty on Purpose, which I didn't even grab until I was standing there paying, and I was like going back and forth on whether I really needed another skein of yarn. But like I'd heard so much about this color, and it's really cool. Like it's got some browns and grays, and it's just very dark, and you've got some neutral in there. It's really pretty. And again, it's on the blitzed base, mostly because I think that may have actually been all that was left at that point. And it was what was close to me when I grabbed it. I like Stellina. I like Stellina bases. I think they're really pretty, so I'm very happy that that's what I ended up with. But yeah, so that's Dirty on Purpose. So that's what I picked up at Kristen's trunk show. So then I moved on to Chelsea Yarns. At Chelsea Yarns, I picked up this prismatic mini yarn set, is what it says. So this is from Sweet Georgia Yarns. It's your basic primary colors in different tones. And I'm going to open it up so you can see from the top. You can see those. Look at those. How pretty. So, like I said, I'm addicted to minis. So this one's, I'm probably going to do a rainbow row in my Cozy Memories blanket, I think. So that's what these will end up being. And then Sweet Sparrow Yarns. Oh my goodness, me and minis, seriously. I picked up her mini set. It was so cute. They're called hatchlings. That's what she calls them. I don't know the colorways, unfortunately. She had each of the colorways as individual skeins too. But I just love, one thing I love about minis is you get a sampling without having to buy all of the yarn. because I spend a ridiculous amount of money on yarn and I need an intervention. So, I'm going with mini skeins for the moment, for the most part. So there's this one here, and this one. Try and show them here. This one's a really light blue, kind of a robin's egg, kind of a peachy. And then this one here, this is the one that I was holding the full skein and almost got, but put back before I did the full skein, or picked up the minis. It's got a bunch of different, it's the light pink with tealy blue. It's really pretty. So that's my mini skeins that I picked up. And then I also picked up a sock blank from her. So this is what it looks like. There's her little tag. This is the Pansy colorway. And I'm going to open it up for you. Actually, I haven't opened it up myself. So this will be kind of a big reveal. So it's this purpley violet, I guess. Anyway, bluish purple color with some rust orange in it, and it's very tonal, and yeah, this is really pretty. And then it's got some really dark speckles in this spot here. So I'm excited about this one. So I picked up that sock blank. So that is my recent yarn purchases. It's a ton of yarn, not gonna lie. It definitely is. Fortunately, I have projects in mind for some of them. I've got my exploration station. The States pattern came with the Flying Fibers yarn. I've got my sweater that I'm going to work on from my Quince & Co. yarn. I've got the sweater from the Cloudborne yarn with the Grocery Girls knit along. So some of it has a purpose, and some of it's just pretty. And I'm going to hold on to it for a little while and do something with it eventually. So that is a lot of my stash. You can see I still have more behind me. I'm not going to talk about them individually unless I'm going to use them, because that would take forever. I have way too much yarn. There was one more thing that I wanted to talk about before I end the podcast, and I need to dip out of frame again because this fell on the ground. I told somebody about a knitting trick that I learned on Facebook, and I did a terrible job explaining it. So I said that I would put it into my next episode. That came out very Minnesota. My next episode. My next episode, and do a better explanation. So what I'm going to show you is my favorite knitting tip ever. This was a life changer for me. So what it is this little piece of string here. So it's just a little piece of string. This, believe it or not, is a row counter. I use this anytime I need to count rows. If I've got to do, I was doing a sweater and I needed to do some waist shaping. It was knit for 6 rows, decrease every 7th, and repeat that a couple of times. I use this for that. I was just finishing off the collar and I had to do 8 repeats of the ribbing, so I used this to keep track of the number of rows I'd done. So the way that you use this, so let's take my first example. So I've got to knit for 6 rows and do a decrease every 7th. So I would take a piece of scrap yarn, piece of string. I like to use kitchen string. It's cotton. It doesn't snag on things. I use this for lifelines too. Fold it in half and tie knots in it. The number of knots that you need for your repeat. So this one I believe has 7 knots in it. So it's for a 7-row pattern repeat. And what you do is when you're knitting, and this is my only whip that I have handy. So when you're knitting your project, I like to use this as the beginning of the round counter, or marker, I mean, because then it's in a convenient place. But what you can do is you put it on your needles in the first loop. The loop there at the top. where you first bent it in half. So you put that on. Actually, you put it on your right needle. And then you knit your row, or your round. And you just knit around, and you keep going in your round or on your row. Then when you get to it again, so when you get to it in your knitting, now when you put your needle in, move your needle down to the second hole. Like that. And then you just knit around. And then when you're done, you get back around to it. You're going to slip it, put your needle into the third hole. Right there. So what that does is when you're on that row, you know what number row you're on by which gap you're in. So, so if I'm knitting this and I've got it on in the third gap, sorry, I'm doing a terrible job of actually knitting. I haven't picked up the yarn at all. And I'm knitting this and I see I'm on the third gap, that means I'm on the third row. So if I get interrupted in the middle of the row, I put it down, don't pick it up for a while. I'm like, wait, where was I? I can see at a glance, I'm on the third row. So that's really convenient. And then so you keep doing that. You keep moving your needle down into each of the gaps. And then when you get to the last one, if you're taking our initial example, you knit for 6 rows and you decrease on the 7th. Now you know, hey, I've gotten to a decrease row. So you decrease. Then when you get to it again, you put your needle back into the top loop and you start your repeat over. It's that easy. It's super simple to use. I love it because first of all, it's free, or the cost of a tiny scrap of yarn. It stays with your knitting. If I was doing this with paper or a Clover Click knitter or one of those spinny ones, then I'd have to make sure my paper was with it. If I wrote down the row I was on, I'd have to make sure my kids don't pick up my stitch marker or my row counter and start clicking at it, because they do all the time. It's the most fun toy ever. And so it's just, the chances of that not happening are slim to none. So, so this one stays on my work. I can tell at a glance which row I'm on. And I use it all the time. Like I said, I use it for keeping track of row repeats if I need to keep track of just the number of rows I need to go. This one is 7 gaps, but I've got some that are like 5 or 6, or if I need to, I just make one. I've got a bunch of them I just keep in my yarn bag. So I've always got them, or like I said, you make one on the fly. So, so very handy. If you have any questions on that, I don't know, hopefully that was more clear than my typed out explanation was. But if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, that is the episode this week. Thank you for joining me. If you liked it, go ahead and hit like, hit the subscribe button, then you can find out when I post new episodes. Hopefully I'll get back on every 2 weeks, though I'll admit I had a lot of fun making that knitting video. So, oh, see, this is the other awkward part. Beginnings and endings are awkward and tough to get to. Anyway, thank you again for joining me. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you next time. Bye.